as people file into the room, so to speak, I always like to have a question that is not relevant to the topic whatsoever while people file in, just so nobody misses anything. Although this is good stuff. They're not here now. They're going to miss probably the most important part of the entire webinar. And that is, it's fall. What is your favorite thing about the fall? Amanda, ladies first.
I would say, I live in New Orleans, so not nearly passing out every time I go outside and getting in the car. So having a little bit of a break from the hot weather is my favorite thing about fall.
It's not 98% humidity. That's a good thing.
Yep.
How about it, John?
So I grew up in Wisconsin. I currently live in Denver, but I really love the crisp air of fall. You walk outside and you can feel it. It's not, kind of to Amanda's point, it's not humid, it's not muggy, but it's probably my favorite season, to be honest. So
now, how long is that season in Denver? Do you have a decent fall?
Yeah, sometimes it feels like, for me, fall goes all the way through winter because it never feels quite winter here to me. But to each their own. Growing up in Wisconsin, you feel winter a little bit harsher than most. So
yeah, I imagine. What part of Wisconsin?
I moved from like Appleton, Green Bay area. So I am a Packers fan. Unfortunately, it's not been our year, but hopefully we have a brighter future ahead. So.
Well, I believe that I'm not a Falcons fan, but I live in Atlanta. I don't know that there really are any true Falcons fans. I think there's more Saints fans in Atlanta than there are Falcons fans.
Might be true. That might be true.
Yeah, but all right. Well, I guess we are actually here to talk about something. So let me do my thing so you guys can do your thing and we can get this kicked off. So good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Grow Your Practice with Custom Reports. My name is Gary Dehart. I am the publisher of Insightful Accountant and the host of today's webinar. Our speakers are John Brandt and Amanda Aguilar. Did I say it right, Amanda?
You did.
Hey, all right. And they will teach you how to create custom reports in a fraction of the time with Xero's report templates. I'll have them introduce themselves in just a second after I cover the housekeeping items, which are CPE is being offered for this session. You have to be here for 50 minutes, 50 minutes, and you have to answer at least 3 of the poll questions. We only have 3, I believe, so don't miss any. We will drop a copy of the presentation into the chat for you. We'll also send a copy of that to you in the follow-up. We'll also, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel. I'll drop that link into the chat as well. We will have both the Q&A and the chat box open, so feel free to ask questions and submit them there. If you do, but when you do ask a question, do be specific because it's possible that they won't be able to answer it right when you ask it. So don't just say, Amanda, why is it so hot? And well, actually, that would be a complete question. Make sure you give the whole, just give the whole question so they understand what you're asking. So that is all I have, and we will just turn it over to them for now. We certainly appreciate you all being here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So we'll just kind of start off here with using report templates to customize your niche. There's a lot of different, industries that we all work in within the accounting field. I specialized in practice when I was in like dental offices, but I always struggled with, you get a new client, you have to recreate the same reports for those clients when you do get them. That's what we'll kind of cover today, how we can make that more efficient for you and within your practice. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce myself. My name is John Brandt. I have been at Xero for about 3.5 years. I am a partner consultant, which really just means like a technical product expert within the platform. I did spend about 7 or 8 years in public practice prior to joining Xero. And I'm also joined by Amanda, who I will let introduce herself.
Thank you, John. I'm Amanda Aguilar. I am currently the Chief Operating Officer of Paget, which is a network of nearly 200 accounting firms in the US. It came from a place of having my own practice. I still actually do have my own practice that I kind of keep in the Paget network, but I've been using Xero for going on, more than 10 years now. So I've been around Xero pretty much since it came to the US. So I love Xero. If anybody out there knows me, it's probably because of Xero. I love getting nerdy, and report templates and reporting, custom reporting is like one of my favorite things about Xero. So I'm totally pumped to be here.
So I'll briefly, do you want to cover the agenda?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'll just cover the agenda really quick and then I'll pass it back to Amanda. So really what we're going to cover today is we're going to talk about what report templates are. We're going to talk about the benefits of these report templates, talk about how you build them using the report codes in the fields, and then I'll demo a couple different versions of reports that we have out there. And then we'll talk next steps and how to get connected with us. And now I'll kick it back to Amanda.
Yeah, so report templates are probably one of the best features in Xero. It's something that definitely differentiates Xero from the competitors. The way that report templates work are that you get to build firm level report, like I call them like frameworks or skeletons of what you want your reports to look like, and that's done at the HQ level, which is the firm level in Xero. And then you craft them, you build them, you customize them, and then you can, when you're in your each client account, you can go grab those skeletons and use those to be the framework for reports. And they're really flush. And sometimes, in some cases, there are reports that are available and templates that are not available even at the Xero client level. So you get access to all of Xero's amazing reports, all the customizing capabilities, all the cool things. I know John's going to go through the demo to show you, but Xero's, like even at the client level, Xero's custom reporting is super, super rich. There are things that I still don't fully probably use. Fields is one, text and schedules, and there's so many fancy things, but all those things are also available up at the template level. So you can create these templates, these skeletons once, invest a lot of time creating them, build them once, and then push them down into your client accounts.
Awesome.
So
talk.
So benefits of using this. So I mentioned I work at Paget, which is a network of 200 accounting firms, each with, hundreds of clients. So if our firms wanted to build custom reports for each of the clients, it would be really time consuming. So one thing that we rely heavily on is report templates. So we can build templates at our network level and have our firms use them down, over and over and over again. So they've been super helpful for that. So like at the firm level, you're building these templates, you're accessing it each time from the client. You don't have to think through the process every time. So that's one thing, is like sometimes customizing reports can be a little bit overwhelming. You don't maybe do it all the time at the client level. So if you, again, invest the time in building the templates at the firm level, they live, then all you have to do is just go grab it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to rethink, should I include this schedule or add this thing? And as I mentioned, I think it's one of the places where Xero really beats the competition. And like, I don't even think it's close. You can build almost any kind of report you want in Xero. It takes a little time, but once you do it, you can use it over and over. And then once you've got it built, as far as like workflow is concerned, you just go grab it. So that means that you can leverage down work sometimes. So, so maybe you have staff in your practice that don't have the capacity, either time-wise or education-wise, to build super fancy reports. You can have someone at your practice make those decisions, build the reports, and then your staff can just, as part of their workflow, go and draft reports for you. And then, as I mentioned, that you can really customize the reports any way you want. So one thing we've done, and Xero has some of these canned already for you, is to build industry-specific reports. So John mentioned that he did a lot of dental practices when he was in practice. I happen to have a lot of law firms. We have firms in the Paget network that have e-commerce clients. All those three different industries have very different reporting needs. So, you can certainly grab a P&L out the box from Xero if you want, but the better client experience is going to be to craft statements that are giving them the answers that they're asking the questions about. So for e-commerce, that's going to be things about costs, probably sales channels and so forth. Whereas on the legal side, there's a lot of trust issues and client costing, which is a totally different thing. So instead of having to reinvent custom reports each time, we can build industry specific reports and use them again across as many clients as we want. I mentioned full customization. Oh, do we need to do a polling question?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
Jump the gun.
That's okay. So I mentioned customization. So, not only are you looking to meet requirements for your clients, again, an example being law firms. Law firms have requirements on trust money that's not theirs to have a really rich accounting around trust funds. So that's a requirement on their reporting. But not only can you use report customization to meet, check the box and like, this is, we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to do this. The shoulder to shoulder answer with your clients is like, what do they want to know? What is the information they need to run their business, to make business and operational decisions? So, I assume that everybody on this webinar is a bookkeeper or accountant who loves rows and columns of numbers. The reality is our clients maybe don't. And so in addition to giving them those standard package of reports, when we have customization, we can add in text, we can add in narratives, we can add in schedules that really help tell the story of where their business is and help to get them, where they want to go. So I feel like a lot of times that isn't fully used in Xero. When we meet with advisors, like it's so easy to do, and it creates a completely different client experience. Certainly it's easy to push the button and grab a package, but making sure that those packages are really rich and that we're really thinking about what the client wants and what their experience is important. And it's super easy to do at scale when you use report templates.
And we'll jump to the first polling question here. So what are you currently using for reporting? Excel, third-party app, reports available within my current GL system.
All right, we'll hold this open for just a few more seconds and then we will close it out in 3, 2, and 1. Looks like 67% are reports available in my GL and 33% using Excel.
Awesome. So let's jump into like what Amanda kind of talked about with the report codes and fields, because that's really how you build that skeleton of the report template. So let me just open these side. So really, let's talk about report codes first. And really what they are a master set of codes. They're preset by Xero. You're not able to add new report codes yourself. And the main reasoning behind all this is just for like that standardization piece. Everyone's aware that there are no two client chart of accounts that are the same, especially if the client, starts wanting to make their own chart of accounts. Some of them, you keep telling them not to keep creating, but they keep creating anyways because they don't know what else to put things under. So really what you're able to do is no matter what that preset chart of account that they have is, you're still able to map them to these different, what we call report codes that build the skeleton of this report template. So I know this is a lot of theory talk, if you will, and I'll show you how it actually looks within the platform. But if anyone's ever been in like a trial balance software, it's essentially that same concept where you have the chart of accounts, it goes into this trial balance software, and now you need to tell it where to go within that software. So we'll kind of walk through some examples of that. But you are able to map each individual client's chart of accounts to that. it's only accessible by the practice staff. So the clients will never be able to access this or change these, this framework when you're building these out. And it's fully customizable as well. So there's a couple different examples of this. You can get very creative with these as well. Just because something is an asset within here doesn't mean it needs to show up in the asset section of the balance sheet. I have worked with many partners who will put like credit cards up in like bank accounts, for example, just to show the client, to say, here's what your net cash is right now, essentially, to say, you know, what's your working capital, as an example. So you can get really flexible with how you want to create these, what makes sense to the client, in this specific instance. So don't feel like you're kind of chained to the traditional way of reporting either. Obviously you can. I feel like I'm more of a traditionalist myself. I still want to see them kind of broken out in their proper buckets. But there's certain reports you can give to these clients that might make more sense to them. So let's go to how this kind of looks at a high level, and I'll show you this in a little bit more detail as well. But on the left here, you can kind of see, okay, the client has these specific chart of accounts, and what we want to do is put them into one of the report code fields. So these are the 3 report code fields that we're using. Here are the client chart of accounts, and then we have like our practice chart of accounts as well, which might be like a master. Now what we might do is say, hey, we want gas mileage repairs to go, all of these to go into vehicle expenses. We don't really care about the breakdown of it when we're actually doing this reporting on this like practice-wide level. Now you can still show all of those individual chart of account detail underneath each one of these report codes when you actually get into it. It's really going to be personal preference for you. You can really just think of these report codes as like a holding block, if you will. So this is where we're mapping everything to. This is the box that it will show up under when we're building out that framework. And then from there, you use that to build the financial statements and the management reports that you'll be able to run when you are in the individual Xero Blue client files. Really briefly, what we're going to do is talk about the report fields too. Really what these are, they're really just placeholders within the templates. There's 2 different options that you have. There's the practice fields, and then there's client specific fields. So the practice field is going to be more like, what is your firm name? Maybe the date that you want to put on there, like where you're located, anything of that nature. But maybe you want to use client specific fields. I'll use like the dental practice that we use as an example. What you can do is say, you know, I want to put Dr. 1, Dr. 2, maybe it's a multi-dental like doctor office. And you just want to put their names on the sheet to say who the report is actually for. Well, you can just then put a holding field there called these report fields within Xero HQ. And then in the practice or within like the client level, you can say, here's Dr. 1, Dr. 2, Dr. 3, and then you can kind of list all of them out. So I'll show you an example of what that looks like. I do feel like it is an underutilized feature of Xero that can really help you save a lot of time, especially when you're looking to combine a bunch of reports together in one reporting package. Too often you see people running, you know, a separate balance sheet, a separate income statement, maybe AR aging, AP aging, whatever it might be, all separate, and then trying to combine them at a later date. This kind of just expedites that process because you'll be able to use this one date range for all of those different reports to kind of pull it down in one reporting package. I don't think, okay, I did miss one thing there, but we'll just jump to the polling question, then we'll jump to the demo because I think it'll make a little bit more sense when I start walking through the different features of Xero. So if you want to shoot this polling question off really quick. And then I see the question popped up is, are you a current Xero user? Yes or no? And if not, and you're willing to jump in the chat to say why not, we're more than happy to hear it.
I love that question. I'm so good at that game. Give me all your Xero objections.
All right, we'll keep it open for about 3 more seconds, and then we'll move on. 2 and 1. Thank you. And it's about 2/3 are no and 1/3 yes.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we can get the people who answer no to answer yes by the end of it. So let's jump into the demo piece of it really quickly. So where we're going to start is right here within Xero HQ. So the first place we'll click on is this reports tab, and this will pull up all of the report templates that you have within your Xero file. Now, if you have been in Xero, or maybe you haven't been in Xero, there are a couple in here that are already created by Xero for you for some different industries. So there might be the retail, professional services, law firm. They're very generic, and you can kind of use those as like a framework to kind of start building your own as you kind of go through. You can see there's a couple other ones that I started creating myself. We'll probably go through this compilation report one today, the Schedule C report. I'll have Amanda kind of talk about like the pageant ones that she mentioned. But we do have like a landlord's package as well. So if anybody's working with a bunch of different Schedule E's or 8825s or anything of that nature that's currently being housed in like Excel or anything of that nature, this is a really easy way to kind of build out that framework right within Xero. So you can see up top here, there's 3 different tabs, these ready to use tabs. These are the ones that are going to be available if I ever jump into a Xero organization. So let me just show the Xero organization. Like these are the ones that you will see under this advisor tab, as that's where these will show up. So all of these that are ready to use are these ones right within here. So you will be able to utilize all of those. You do have a draft tab as well. So let's say you just want to keep working on one. Those will be housed within here. You can always mark those as ready to use. So that way you can see them within that Xero file. Otherwise, you can always archive them as well. And you can always unarchive them if you need to. But sometimes people will just start creating new ones and just want to make sure no one's using the old ones. Also up top here, you do have these different report styles that you can kind of customize for these different reports that you're working with. You can put your company logo within here. I just chose a very generic one, either that or I was going to put a face myself, but I didn't really want to do that. Otherwise, you can choose the different color. You can choose some font sizes as well and kind of see what that preview would look like for these. Additionally, let's go back to that screen. These report fields that I mentioned, this is kind of where you would have to create them first here, like I mentioned within the client fields or the practice fields. So you can see in the practice field, I just put like the accountant, city, and state. So whenever you're doing like a comp review or like any kind of prepared financial statement, you might want to put like, you know, where you're physically located at the bottom of that report. The client field is going to be more specific to the client. And once you create those fields then become available within Xero. So if I go into Xero and I see these report fields, that's where these would then be created. So you can see here, I have my director's last name depreciation method, just like I have within here. And when I click into these, what I can do is put in the answer essentially to what these are. So you can see I have like the doctor's last name and like the different directors' names as well. So feel free to create these and kind of play around with these. Every one of you would have a dedicated account manager or partner consultant like myself to help you walk through this. So don't feel like you have to navigate through this alone. We're definitely here to help you with that. But I just kind of wanted to show you where you would start with that. Now, quickly, before I jump into like a sample report template and kind of walk through everything there, I do want to talk about this chart of accounts tab here. So let's say, you know, like you're Amanda and you have law firms, you were me and you had like dental clients. And a lot of times you have like a preset standard chart of accounts that you do like to utilize. Now you might add like one-off accounts for some other ones if there's like a multiple doctor, a multiple like lawyer office or anything of that nature that you want to track. But what you can do is at least start with the framework that you know you're going to use. And what makes this so powerful, in my opinion, is you are able to map these chart of accounts here already to those report templates that you've created. So you can have ones for, you know, your law offices, your e-commerce, your dental offices, retail, whatever it might be. You can have these created here and already mapped to those report templates that you want to utilize. So as I mentioned, there's some that are already out here. So if you clicked on them, you can kind of click into them and kind of see where everything's mapped with these report codes. And I'll show you where you would do that here in a little bit before we jump into that. But just kind of wanted to show you this. This does exist. So usually my best recommendation is if you are working with a niche, a lot of times you have that chart of accounts, let's start building that framework of that chart of account, and then let's get the chart of it, the framework of the report template, and then map that standard chart of accounts that you like to use to that template. And then that way you can kind of really start rolling this out after putting in all that front work. So anything you want to add on that, Amanda? Otherwise, I'll kind of jump into the Schedule C.
All I will add is it is much easier to start with report codes in the chart of accounts than it is to go back and add them. You can, and Xero does a pretty good job of flagging them for you, but the best answer is to use one of these HQ reports, HQ chart of accounts with report codes, or upload a custom chart of accounts that has the report code already built in. Again, you can do it after the fact, but it is much easier to do it on the front end.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Like, I've worked with a lot of partners who have started within Xero and they started creating all these sample report packs like at the client specific level, and found themselves having to recreate it for every client that they brought on. And then I was walking through them with the report templates piece of it, and they're like, you know what, I really wish I would have put in the work in the beginning to learn this right away, because it would have saved them so much time. Now, there are ways with Xero to do it still, like you said.
Yeah, I'll just say, like, this has been out for probably, if I had to put on my calculator hat, probably 2018, if I had to guess, report templates ish. So it's called about 5 years. So it's been out for a while, and maybe even a little bit earlier than that. And I remember when I saw it, I was a little bit like, oh gosh, this is overwhelming. I'm not going to do this. It's not that hard to get them set up, and you're going to demo how to do it. It is well worth the investment of a couple of hours to get really good at it, and then not have to, do it at the client level again. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. So like, even at the client level, I mean, you can still do the mapping that way, or you can use like Excel, because there's like a listing of all the report codes that you can utilize. I find it easier to do it within Excel myself, and then that way I can just re-import that if I needed to for clients that I've already started working with. But we can have one-off discussions on that. I don't want to go too deep into a rabbit hole here. But let's start with this Schedule C one as an example. So when you click into here, you can see we have right here, we just have these 4 different schedules that we have. So these ones right here, this is just a text box. So if there's certain things on these reports that you want to call out ahead of time, obviously I didn't do any audit, review, compilation procedures, or anything of that nature. Whatever you want to put in here, some people put it as like a welcome letter for their clients as well when they're delivering it, with any contact information of who they should contact. So you can utilize that in any way you want, but you can always add or remove reports, reorder them, however you want to see these is kind of how you can build them. Where these reports initially pull from are the chart of account, or the reports library right within Xero here. So if you were under this home tab, this is by default where it'll pull some of these reports. Now, it won't pull every single one of these, but it will pull like the main reports within here. So when you're starting to add the reports that you want, that's where they initially come from. Now, let's say you do customize some at the HQ level here. That's just what we'll call it for report templates. Then you're able to start pulling those into other report templates that you've started to build. So just kind of be aware of that as you kind of build these. More will become available because you've created them. So it's really easy to add these different reports. You can kind of preview these for organizations as well. So I'm just going to preview it as an example here. This won't pull in the report fields within here when you preview it, but it will pull in like the numbers as you're kind of building these. So let's jump to the second page here. So really what this report template was designed and made for was to regroup the book basis, if you will, of the income statement to what it would look like for like a tax return input. If you don't have a trial balance software, if you have no GL linking to the tax return, or maybe you don't have a desire to do it. Some people have been burned by it a few times. I myself have in the past. Sometimes, numbers appear and you're like, where did that number come from, et cetera. So you're trying to hunt down that number. So really what this is meant to do is to say, hey, you might have, 5 different insurance accounts that all show up as insurance expense on the tax return. That's what you're able to start recreating within this report template. So if I go into this edit layout button here, this is where I don't want to say the magic happens, but this is where the magic happens. I don't have a better term for it. But you can see these are like the groupings that I've created. So for example, gross receipts and sales. Underneath this is the report code that I have used to map this, the chart of accounts that I want to this. So that is like your bucket, if you will. Now, how do you get what you want as revenue items to gross receipts and sales? Is you would do that through Xero. So let me just kind of open it up. I know it's a little bit of jumping around, but I swear it makes more sense this way. And when you're building these, a lot of times what you're going to want to do is hopefully have two screens and have Xero HQ open on one, this open up on the other. So that way you can start seeing, here's my chart of accounts. Where do I want these coded, and what chart of account or what report code is actually being utilized. So you can see here that I have these couple items, this one, and this one coded to revenue. So when I actually run these, then and I go under here, all of those are now going to show up under this revenue line item, and it will just show as a total gross receipts and sales if I have it, you know, kind of subtotaled this way. But if I do have this open, when I run this at the client level, it's going to show me every single account that makes up that revenue line item. So it's really up to you. If you still want to see the chart of accounts underneath those, you absolutely still can. If you choose not to, you don't have to. There's different workarounds, preferences that people like to use. Some people like to use these different subschedules to create that. And I'll show you an example of that in the compilation report. But essentially what you're doing here is, as Amanda mentioned, you're building that framework to say, these are the buckets that I want everything kind of broken down by. These are the totals that I want. Here's a report code that fits underneath each one of these. And then you're saying, okay, now which chart of accounts relate to those report codes?
Can I say something, John, that you might not be able to say? One of the objections I hear all the time about Xero is that Xero doesn't have sub-accounts, right? QBO has sub-accounts. And I don't know how I can function if I don't have sub-accounts. In Xero, the chart of accounts is totally flat. Every line has an equal value. But the presentation to the client is solved by grouping accounts together. So you know, in QBO, they're called sub-accounts and they roll up into a line. Here, we just say you take 5 chart of accounts lines and group them into the same category. And you have the identical functionality in that, the point you just made. You can either have it show as one whole line, or you can have it show as like a title and then the sub, what would look like sub accounts underneath. So I do hear that a lot out in the industry, that is a criticism of Xero, but it really doesn't make a difference. It's you get the same reporting here using groups. So.
Yeah, good point. And I think it's one thing that makes Xero stand out too, is it's extremely flexible. Most GL systems, they report based upon how the chart of accounts is ordered or anything of that nature. And if you wanted to make a change, you know, something to go from like an operating expense to a cost of goods sold type, normally you have to go back to the chart of accounts to kind of change that type, come back to the report to make sure it's changed. With Xero, everything once it's in here is like standalone from the chart of accounts, and you can just drag and drop these in different orders, different buckets. If you want to move these around, you can absolutely just start moving these between different accounts.
Right, because it's totally frustrating when you're the only reporting option is alphabetical order or code order. Well, that's not how we do tax returns. That's not how you fill out tax returns. So having this Schedule C report already built for you, you know, you're literally going to see line 11 is this number, line 12 is this number, and it makes things a lot more efficient on the tax prep side too. So.
Yeah, and this is one that Xero has built out. So there's this custom chart of accounts that's already mapped to this. So if you fall into that Schedule C bucket, absolutely go ahead and start utilizing this right away. That is something that can be a time saver, especially for some of those simpler Schedule Cs that you want to get off your plate and kind of expedite that process. But really quickly to talk about these top boxes. So let's say up top here, these gross receipts, and up top, you just wanted to see that. What you can do down below is you can create this subschedule, and then I can just say, I want to pull in my revenue report code here. Now, when I do this down below, now it'll show me all of that detail down below. That's what I wanted to see. So Xero has the ability to create these subschedules as you're kind of working through these. It might not make as much sense to do it here, but when you start doing like these compilation or review engagements, or templating something out like that within the platform, it might make a lot more sense. Or you have multiple partners and you want to look at distributions, but you don't want, 10 different line items on there on the balance sheet. So there's a lot of different use cases for that. You're absolutely able to create text blocks within everything as well. So if you want to create these footnotes, they could be for you, they could be for the client, however you wanted to create these. You can create the footer, just kind of say, prepared by or prepared financial statements. This is just another way to kind of go through and create rows. So you could create another group here, which would just create one of these that I've already created myself. You can do custom formulas as well within some of these. Now, don't try to go too complex and use all of your Excel knowledge within these formulas. It's not that complex, but you can still do, some basic computations in there if you wanted to. Otherwise, you can do custom like fillable fields, which I'll show you in a second on the next page as well. And then across the top, you have multiple date range options. You can do budget versus actuals. You can put in your own custom formulas again. You can put in notes, and really what this just allows you to do is kind of link it down to a note down below, if you will, when you kind of go through those. So I could say I want to link to Target. I guess I didn't name it anything, but what you can do is like link it to that note that you've created. So if there's multiple ones that you want to call out for any specific reason, you're absolutely able to do that. And then one other one that's kind of, I would say underutilized is like the percentage, just because you can common size multiple periods against each other. It's not just one period. So you can see, hey, what's 22 as a percentage of income, 21, 20, and kind of see what that trend looks like. Are my labor costs increasing? Are they decreasing? Are my supply costs increasing? Cost of goods sold, et cetera. You can kind of have those and build out these custom, management report packs too, that maybe might be more what the client is kind of after. So let's jump to the second schedule here. This is just a schedule that might make more sense not in this screen. So let me just cancel out of here. Just kind of show you what it looks like. But this is an example of using those schedules to help create additional value here with like the fillable field. So let's say you wanted to compare standard versus actual. You can start filling out this information within here, and it'll do the computations for you. Now, it won't do like the difference in the percent change, which isn't a huge deal, but this way you can at least start filling out some of this information, and you can use this to your heart's content as well. So there's different ways you want to utilize this within different niches that I'm not familiar with. You can absolutely do that when you're building these out. And then you can keep creating these different schedules. This is just to show, hey, not everything on book income shows up on Schedule C. So there's different schedules that things flow to, where normally it would just show up on an income statement. So it kind of can help you with that prep, help the client understand it, and maybe help the staff and the reviewers as well when you're kind of going through these things. Let's jump to just a sample compilation report as well, just so I can kind of show you what these report fields look like, what the highlighting things would kind of look like at this level as well. So what you can see here is I've highlighted some of this text, and the reasoning for that is because maybe there's certain times, maybe they're not under GAAP, maybe they're under IFRS, or anything of that nature that could change. And then you can see some of these that have kind of, these are our report fields, those directors and last name. Now you're not going to see that within here, but if I go into the actual report at the client level, this one, what it's going to do is it's going to keep that text highlighted for me. So that way I know, hey, this might be something that you might want to change. And if once you're done with it, you can absolutely unhighlight it. So it just kind of is saying, hey, this might require action. And then this way it says, okay, now here are my directors, here are my doctors currently practicing. You can utilize those however you kind of see fit, but that's kind of how it would appear in comparison with how you are building these. So you can see you can insert these fields and do some font changing and everything else within here. But that's kind of how you would utilize those report fields within here. I have had partners that have started doing like some simple compilation reports right within Xero, because what they can do is they can just template it out right in here. They can template out all, their footnotes that they would need as well. And then they can add, delete, remove, whatever, change, whatever they need to within these, just by simply starting to utilize some of these report fields. So I'll just kind of click through this a little bit just to kind of show you. I don't have this one as mapped as I do that Schedule C, but you kind of get the idea of like what you would want to do within here. One thing I always like to call out too is I didn't completely make this the way I wanted to quite yet, but you can do an actual indirect statement of cash flows within Xero, because you are able to split the debit and the credit within report templates. You're not able to do that within the Xero Blue file itself, but you can do it within report templates, which I really liked, because a lot of times when I was doing reporting in practice, the cash flow statement was always in Excel. No matter what, you would pull the financial statements out of your GL software, but the cash flow statement was always done separately, because most systems wouldn't do it properly or allow you the proper customization to get what you needed. Within Xero, you are able to do that, because you can kind of create all these groupings, split that debit and the credit to kind of show it in the proper buckets. Let's show like the notes to the statements. And so you can see some of the stuff has a ton of highlights in here. Some of this stuff you could probably put as a report field. I just didn't, just to kind of show you an example of what this is, but you can have all of these different things templated out for yourself as you're kind of working through these. And like I said, you can always remove, you can reorder them, you can delete them, however you want to do this, but then you can create those sub schedules of the balances that make up other items on the face of the financial statements. What's nice then when you are ready to utilize these, let me just export that as like a styled PDF, just so you can see what like a final copy would look like. If you are doing like drafts as well, you can put watermarks in these, and you can include a cover and table of contents. They changed where Google downloads files, and I'm still not quite used to it, but I'm getting the hang of it. But this is kind of the example of what it would look like. So there's no formatting you would need to do. From there, Xero kind of takes care of all that. We'll do the table of contents and then just kind of spit out every single report for you that you've ran. And then you can send that off to the client, or you can publish it, and then the client can always log into Xero and look at it. It's kind of personal preference on that piece of it. Anything I missed there, Amanda, that you want to jump in on? Otherwise, I can kind of just pull up the Paget ones and kind of chat through that if you want.
Yeah, we can go through the Paget ones if you want, and I'll explain where some of these came from. So Paget historically used a write-up software called ACS, Accountant CS, which is a Thomson Reuters product. It was not cloud-based. And so we have been moving consistently everybody over to Xero, but there were some reports in ACS that folks liked. And so we had, with the help of Casey and Andy, who's on my team, they basically duplicated the reports that were out of ACS into Xero using report templates. So this is one example. And it is a report pack. I mean, that's one of the things I love so much about this, is it's not a single statement, but you can build these really flush report packs. And as you demonstrated, John, you can just click a button and they come out just beautifully. You know, once they're set up right, they come out beautifully in PDFs, and you can send them on to your clients. So these are just some examples. I think if you scroll through, yeah, so like one of the things that our folks liked was to have current and year to date in columns. And then the next page, I think, is same period last year, basically. So these are just things that we built. I say I didn't touch them. It was Casey and Andy Ford. These are things that those guys built based on putting in columns, calculations, date columns, and so forth. And you can see that we use groups too. So as just an example of something we did, the trailing 12 months, I think, is one of those reports. So just an example of some of the fun you can have with Xero custom reporting.
Yeah, and I like it too, because like you can click into some of these too, and then, like if you just don't want it to say September 2023, you say current month, prior month.
Yep.
You can just rename those within here too, and it's very easy to do to save going forward. I know a lot of it's personal preference, so you have the option to kind of change those. Yeah,
and I would say this too, like if you have not dealt with the customization, the layout editor, reach out to your either PC or your Sam or whomever your contact is at Xero, because there's a lot of stuff that you can do that doesn't seem on the face initially obvious that you can do, as far as like your point about titles. You can totally change the titles, but it might not be something that you would realize was an editable field on your own. So the folks over at Xero are really good about helping. So reach out if you have questions. Yeah, don't change my template.
I won't touch it.
Don't save changes.
And I think that is the beauty of it too. So definitely reach out to us. Personally, these are the conversations I really enjoy, and a lot of people at Xero do enjoy, like trying to help solve these problems. So definitely let us know. But there's a ton of different options that you can start using within report templates today. And if there's certain ones that you want to try to create and you have like a sample, bring that to the meeting and we can kind of discuss that with you and be like, yes, we can do this. We'll work on this. And we'll kind of give you the straight answer if it's going to be possible within Xero. There's right now within Xero's like reporting, there's no way to house like non-financial data, but you can use those custom fields to kind of enter that information in and then potentially run formulas based upon that. So like if you wanted to say like one I always use was like new patients or something within like the dental practice, and then you can kind of calculate the revenue based on that, or revenue per new patient. So there's a lot of different options you can utilize within here. You can get a little creative with it, kind of make it your own. But we're here to kind of support you as you kind of go through that.
John, I don't know. I don't think you mentioned blank report, did you?
I did not. No,
so yeah, so I would just say that you can get so creative, in fact, that Xero gives you basically a blank piece of paper and says, put whatever you want on this report. So you can create, tons of narratives, or like you said, you could, type in non-financial data. So a blank report is just a report that you can put in different components and structure it however you want. So that's really cool. I mean, yeah, it's basically a blank piece of paper that you're going to go add whatever you want on. So
yeah,
that's
so
fun.
you can, from here, you can just start adding. I want to add a text block because I want to put some kind of note here telling what this is about. And then when you click into here, obviously you can say, I don't want any numbers or anything of that nature. And then maybe down below, you want to give, some financial information pulling from the GL. Or if down below, you just want to create a blank row, like a custom row here, then this becomes a fillable field here where you would type some information in. So it's just kind of, some people, it scares people a little bit on the blank report because they're like, I don't even know where to start. Some people really love it because there's like, it's building from the ground up. So it's completely up to you. I mean, we're here to kind of support that either way, but it is kind of a cool, unique feature that you can just kind of start from scratch. I'm just gonna scroll through here. I think that was everything. Are there any questions? I mean, feel free to dump anything in the chat or in the question and answer. I mean, we're more than happy to answer any of these. But I think that's what I have for the demo. Let's see. So we'll jump to, maybe I did that. I think there's one more polling question that was supposed to be after the demo, and maybe I deleted it by accident. So we want to shoot that polling question off quick.
Since everyone's doing that, are there any other questions about anything on Xero? Because we're happy to answer not just reporting questions, but if you've got any questions on Xero in general.
I'll hop in with the question for you. And that's around, you had mentioned I think you called them the SAMs. Is that like strategic account managers? Is that what that is?
Yeah, I can take that.
Yeah,
so that's like a seat.
kind of,
It's yeah. So really how it kind of works within Xero, everyone's going to have like a dedicated account manager. So the S just stands for senior account manager. And they're usually paired up with a partner consultant like myself. So they are usually your main point of contact. If you have any questions with billing or you want to get in contact with, learn something more at Xero, then they'll pull us in if there's like a technical question within Xero or workflows or any accounting related questions. Everybody on our team has experience in accounting, whether it's private or public, some both. And if one of us doesn't know the answer, we have good resources as well, like the ambassadors, and like Amanda's a national ambassador, along with a couple other ones that we can always pull in if there's specific questions that they have for like real world experience, like currently using Xero. So
Yeah, I think that's really important. That's another differentiator too, is everyone's got a dedicated account manager on the sales side, but they have access to an accountant who works at Xero. So when you're having some of these questions, they're the PC partner consultant like John are going to know what you're talking about. You don't have to start from scratch. You can say, hey, I'm trying to generate a compilation report and I need these footnotes. I mean, John knows what that means. So I think it's a really important value that Xero puts out to its partner community. I mean, Xero has always, since I've been, around for 10 plus years, been extremely supportive of its bookkeepers and accountants. So that's just another demonstration of that, I think.
And then, and just follow up on that, what's the best way for someone who, because I think we were 2/3 were not current Xero users, what would be the best way for them to get in contact with you guys?
For the group that's here, I would just say just reach out to myself to start, and then that way I can kind of direct who your main point of contact would be. So I'd be more than happy to kind of facilitate any of those conversations, unless maybe Molly has a better email to send things to, but you can just run them through me to start. That'd be fine.
Okay. And what's your email?
Yeah, I'll just pop it in the chat. I think that'll be easier. There.
Then has last one I'll ask, and that's around XeroCon, which I believe my video seems to be going kind of slow, so I'm going to cut it off there. So XeroCon is scheduled. Do you guys have that information handy?
I do. I have it on a sticky note on my computer because I'm so excited for it. It is August 14th and 15th of next year in Nashville. So I will absolutely be there.
Excellent. So August 14th, 15th, Nashville. Where is it, at the Gaylord or? I
don't know. Molly might know. Is it a convention center, Molly? It's usually a pretty big deal.
I believe it's at the convention center.
Okay. I've not been there. So, all right. And I'm sure we'll see some information rolling out on that pretty soon.
Yep. I think there's going to be a big announcement soon.
So
I was going to say, I think I got an email today that tickets were looking to go on sale soon. So,
right.
So be on the lookout for that, but we can send over some follow-up information on that too. So it's always a fun time. So
yeah, it is. It's always been a great show. And then Molly, who is off screen, if you have info on that, go ahead and send it over to me, because I have not received anything that we could push out on Insightful Accountant. So any last thoughts, parting thoughts for John or Amanda? Nope. All right. Well, going once, twice, and 3 times we're sold. We will wrap this up. Thank you both. Certainly appreciate you giving us updates on reports and reporting in Xero, and we will see you very soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.